I never realized how much my weight affected my thoughts about my future until recently when my man and I wanted to go to Pizza Ranch. We looked at each other and said, let's just go next weekend. And in that moment, I realized I never used to actually believe there would be a next weekend.
Say hi.
Welcome to Baddie, the podcast where we discuss healing our relationship with food, body image, trauma, and self-worth. I'm a current baddie and future baddie, learning how to become the healthiest, happiest, and most confident version of myself without shame, crash diets, or pretending the journey is easy. This is a space for honest conversations about obesity, healing, and loving yourself enough to care for your body. For a while, I had this mentality where time just didn't really exist. There was no future. There was just the now. And so when I messed up right now, the only future there was a start over, right? So if I had a cookie on Wednesday, the entire rest of the week is fucked because none of that time matters anymore. All of that time is wasted time now. So whatever I want to do with that time, I'm allowed to. If I want to overeat all 4 of those days, that's fine. I already messed up on Wednesday, so by the time Monday comes, we'll start over on Monday. I don't understand where this mentality kind of came from. I genuinely don't know if it's trauma related, but I do hear this a lot. I hear it when New Year's comes around. I'll start over on New Year's. Or I hear it at the beginning of the month. I hear it at the beginning of every week. Like, oh, I'm going to start a diet, but I'm not starting it today. I'm starting it Monday. It's so common for us to think that we have to have a specific date to restart rather than just making healthy choices every single day. And if I could go back to the person that did it multiple times when I ate one cookie on a Wednesday and thought that was the end of the world for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, I wish that I could go back and just let her know that the Desi today had a donut at work and is eating meal prep tonight and is eating meal prep tomorrow morning and is eating meal prep for lunch tomorrow. I wish I could go back to that Desi and explain how time doesn't have to just be on a Monday, and time doesn't only exist if we are eating healthy. And I don't know if maybe that was the part that was difficult for me to understand. For me, time didn't mean anything when I was unhealthy. Like if I was eating fast food, right, and then my friends wanted to go get dinner that night, time didn't matter to me. I didn't care that I ate my lunch at 4 p.m. If they wanted to go out at 6, I'll go back out at 6. Because when am I going to get that time again? You know? When am I going to get that time again? So it didn't matter. Like, if that makes sense, time did not matter in my unhealthy habits. And so therefore, because I did 4 and then 6, who cares about what happens on Friday and Saturday? Who cares what happens Saturday and Sunday? All that I know is even though it's Thursday night that I'm going out with my friends, I'll start over on Monday. And that's just such an unhealthy way of thinking about not only having to restart and then you're using all of the rest of the time until Monday to overeat, binge, or do whatever you want, but you're also creating this unhealthy relationship with food constantly where it's like if you have one cookie, everything is ruined. And that was the hardest part. I think that's something that we'll maybe discuss another time. But realizing that a cookie can be a cookie and then that's all that it is, and the next day I go right back into my regular food, that was a hard switch. But doing I had a cookie, so now I guess I'll just start over Monday, it reinforces that that one cookie is horrible, and that when you lose weight you can't ever have a cookie again, which is so unhealthy. Super cool if you don't find cookies to be good tasting anymore and you don't crave cookies anymore. Super cool. But the goal is not to never enjoy food again. It's actually to enjoy food more. So I just found that time didn't matter anymore, and instead I was creating more unhealthy relationships with the food that I was eating, and then ruining the rest of my week, which severely impacted my weight by increasing it a lot when I try really hard to do good on Monday and Tuesday, fuck up Wednesday, and say fuck it until next Monday. Because, hunty, Monday, Tuesday, right? You mess up Wednesday, but you have a good Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you mess up Sunday. That is still 5 out of the 7 days a week that you ate amazing. And I relate to that being hard to take in on Wednesday when you eat that one cookie and think that everything is over. I so relate to that. And even still do sometimes. But then taking it as you've messed up the rest of the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, you could have flipped it. You could have flipped it and had 5 days that you ate really well and had 2 days that maybe weren't great. Instead, you had 2 days that were great and 5 days that we just gave up on because we'll start over on Monday. I got trapped in that for so long. And it takes a lot of self-talk in the moment of messing up. And I want to put messing up in quotes because eating a cookie isn't messing up, right? But in our heads, it's going to tell us that we messed up, right? But I want you to challenge yourself and self-talk yourself, saying one cookie is not ruining the 5 days of progress that I'm going to make this week. One cookie doesn't erase the 2 days of progress I already did this week. One cookie today doesn't even mess up the progress that I did today. Maybe I go for a walk for an hour. And that's not to say to do movements so that you can eat unhealthy. All that I'm saying is that if you really feel like you messed up, go get some movement. So burn calories. Go burn some calories then. If you really feel like you messed up, and this is not, again, I'm not saying if you ate a cookie you have to go and work out for an hour. I'm saying if it messed your brain up so bad, go get some moving in. Go get some moving in. Go for a walk. Go lift some weights. Do something to burn some calories so that then you can feel a little bit better and understand eventually that one cookie is not destroying your entire progress that you've made for the entire week. And that one cookie isn't even destroying the progress that you've made in that day that you ate the cookie. So if I could go back to the Desi that ate a cookie on a Wednesday and ruined the rest of those days for the week until Monday came back around so that I could just restart on Monday, I wish I could just show her this clip and remind her that if she eats a healthy supper, then she did nothing but enjoy life. And that's the whole point of this healing journey, is not to restrict ourselves, not to create a fully healthy life. We are not becoming almond moms, okay? I am not an almond mom. I don't see myself becoming an almond mom. We simply are healing ourselves. We are healing our relationship with food. And we are healing our relationship with health and fitness. We are improving our well-being. And to do that, we have to identify these moments and speak to ourselves in these moments, identify the times that we still find these moments happening, and do work in those moments to make those changes. It kind of goes along with the saying, when I'm talking about the Wednesday happened, so now Thursday's gonna happen, then Friday's gonna happen, and Saturday, then Sunday, because we'll start over on Monday, right? It gives off the same vibe of just one more cheat day, right? Because you already messed up Wednesday, let's just keep the cycle going. But like I was just saying, if you keep that idea, you just wasted 5 good days of eating. And I think that that's really important to think about, is you could, like, 5 good days with 2 bad days? Girl, let's really quick look at the calculation, okay? And I'm not saying pig out on those 2 days. I'm saying if we ate bad and we're really down on ourselves, let's see what that would look like, right? 2 out of 7, 28, right? So 5 out of 7. If you ate good 5 days out of the week, you ate good 74% of the week. And you know what? That's passing. So that one cookie on Wednesday did not ruin your progress, because you still had 72. Sorry, I may have said that wrong. 72%. 72% still passing. But if you let that one cookie ruin your entire progress for the week, you dropped your percentage to 29%. So when you think about eating that cookie on a Wednesday, even though you ate really good on Monday and Tuesday, I just want you to sit and think about, you could still have, if you only ate that cookie, right, and then you turned everything around, you didn't even have the second day. Let's look at that. 6 out of 7. You could have an 86% good week. But like I said, you didn't even ruin your progress on Wednesday by eating one cookie. You know how many times people fit cookies into their calories? I fit a cookie into my calories. Tomorrow we're going to Pizza Ranch, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but I'm fitting the apple pie that I'm going to get into my calories. And yes, maybe it would have been spread out through a couple of days worth of calories, but I'm still fitting it in my calories, because to me, that apple pie is really important. So if that cookie was really important for you to grab, fit it into your calories, and you can still have an 86% good eating week. I want to talk about the mentalities of let's eat it because you deserve it and it's a special occasion. Because I heard this somewhere. I can't remember where it was. But when we tell ourselves it's a special occasion, or let's do it because we deserve it, you're saying that when you know the thing you're doing isn't aligning with your goals. And I think it's checking ourselves with that. I think it's okay that sometimes we do things outside of our goals, right? But it's checking yourself and realizing if you have been outside your goals for a while and if you need to realign. Or if you're in those moments where it's okay to be outside your goals. But I know for me personally, I was justifying every eat out with my friends. Every time we ate out, it was, oh, my friend got a new job, or we made it through the week and we haven't seen each other for a long time, or there's so many things, right? But there are also so many other ways to celebrate. And I think another podcast I'll make at another time is finding things outside of food to enjoy, so that then when it comes to these kinds of thoughts, you're not having to justify it. Because if you're having to justify something, it doesn't align with your goals. And if your goals are spending time with friends and your friends want to go get a margarita, that aligns with your goals, right? So you wouldn't be telling yourself it's a special occasion, or you wouldn't be telling yourself you deserved it. It would align with your goals because that's what your goal is. If I was going to yoga class, I wouldn't justify why I'm going to yoga class. I just know that yoga class is something that aligns with my goals. So I'm just going to go to it, right? But when I'm thinking about getting Taco Bell tonight, I would have to justify it because it doesn't align with my goals, and I have no reason to go to Taco Bell tonight. We have our meal prep in the fridge. So me having to justify Taco Bell tells me it's not aligned with my goals or my needs. Really. That just tells me it's old Desi, the dragon inside, if you remember me talking about that last episode, coming out and trying to get me to eat something that I know it doesn't align with me right now. And again, that's not to say that I can never just choose Taco Bell, right? But it's planning. When we think of setting up goals, right, you plan out the steps that you're going to take to reach your goals. So when I have a goal of hanging out with friends, like I have a goal that I want to hang out with one of my friends over a town away more often, but the best way for us to do that is a quick dinner. So when we are setting up a time to get together, I know that I need to make sure that I plan calories into our hangout because I know that we're going to go out to eat. So I don't have to justify when the time comes on why I should get Taco Bell or why I should get a margarita at a restaurant or why I should get a pizza pie, right? Because I've already planned that because it was part of my goals. So it's just something to think about when you're trying to justify something, and this is it's still part of that mentality of everything has to be now. If you have to justify your choice, it doesn't align with your goal. And it doesn't align with you. I don't think a lot of it was delaying gratification. I think a lot of it was genuinely, I didn't see a future Desi. Every day I was genuinely just trying to survive. Genuinely trying to survive. And I mean, like, I was scared. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but sometimes I was scared about when my choices would take over my life. So I wasn't worried about future Desi. I think I was so stuck in this everything has to happen right now. I have to get the food right now. I have to hang out and get a margarita right now. I have to get this donut that someone brought into the office because what if a donut never comes back, right? I wasn't delaying gratification because I genuinely at times didn't think there would be a future Desi to experience it again. And I think that's one of the scariest realizations that I came to a couple of weeks ago. I was literally surviving every day. I was surviving every day. I was hoping I would make it through the night. And then that next day came, and again, I was surviving the day. So if that meant a friend wanted ice cream, I don't know if I'll see that friend again. I can't be without ice cream. I gotta go get that right now with them because what if I'm not here next week to go get it with them instead? I genuinely wasn't thinking about a future Desi. And I kind of wonder if anybody else has experienced something similar or if maybe it's my intrusive thoughts. But have you been able to catch a time that you felt you were just surviving the days and how that impacted the alignment with your goals? So this is kind of funny. The moment I realized the switch, right? The moment I realized that there is a future Desi, there is a next weekend, all of that was just a couple of days ago. I was sitting with my man, right? We're door dashing. We do DoorDash on the side just for some extra money until I can get a part-time job. Because right now I work a full-time job, so then we were door dashing, but things just don't pay enough, and I have gas and a car I need to take care of, so we gotta get a part-time job. But so in the meantime, we're door dashing, right? And we go past Pizza Ranch, and it is so funny because Pizza Ranch is not something most people would crave, but for some reason I started craving Pizza Ranch. This was actually about a month ago, and I told him, and we had plans to go to Pizza Ranch that weekend. Well, that weekend we decided instead we would rather just stay in, get some popcorn, and watch some movies, and then we had meal prep at home, so we ended up eating that. The next day I think it was similar. We didn't have popcorn again, but we kind of just ate our prep and just forgot about Pizza Ranch. But then we're door dashing again and we go past it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want that so bad. And he was like, well, let's plan it. I'm like, okay, cool. So we planned it for the next weekend. Well, that next weekend is the 4th of July. And we already know we're going to one of his friends' places on the Saturday, on the 4th. And we weren't sure if there was going to be food there. If there wasn't, we were like, we'll just eat our prep afterwards, but let's go there, see if there's food, and then if not, we'll eat after, right? So then we're like, okay, well, that Friday maybe. Well, that Friday, it was the 3rd, and I had already had planned to make brats that night because I've also been craving brats. Never in my life had I ever craved brats, but I craved brats, so I already had the plan of eating brats. So then we were like, okay, Sunday. But while we're also door dashing, we also found this place called Moto Donuts. It's like a mochi donut place, and we really wanted to try it. So then it was like, okay, we can either go on a walk and then get Moto Donuts, or we can go to Pizza Ranch and I'll do my hot Pilates in the morning. We kind of like talked it out and decided instead we would want to go on a walk, spend some time together, and then go do Moto Donut quick, get home and relax. But that meant that we had to push out Pizza Ranch for another weekend, right? And it was kind of funny, and I was like, oh yeah, we can do that, that's no problem, whatever. But then like, it was probably a minute or two after when we had decided we were doing it that next weekend that I sat there and realized I genuinely believed that the next weekend would come. Oh my gosh, I might start crying. That was like a really big moment for me, because before, it's hard to explain if you haven't experienced something similar, but sometimes you genuinely don't know when your health choices are going to take over your life. And for a while I thought I didn't know when my last time would be, and it's scary. But so that was a really big moment for me, because me planning the next weekend told myself there's a future me. Told myself I trust that the habits that I'm doing every day are increasing my lifespan. And yes, I'm young, but when you live in a big body this young, it ages you very fast. And I'm aware of that, and that's why these changes are happening. But that's also why this moment was so big for me, because it's just telling me that I'm trusting my actions and my body. It was just a really impactful moment for me, because in that moment I realized like Pizza Ranch is gonna be there next weekend, and you know what's also going to be here next weekend? I was confident in that moment to know that I was gonna be here next weekend. And it's just a really big moment. And if you experience what I mentioned before, there is a time when you start making changes that you will feel the moment I just felt. And it is the most beautiful moment. It is the most beautiful moment. I can't express how I have felt since. I cannot express it. Going along with the feeling of not knowing when the end is, right? I used to this is so embarrassing. This is such an emotional podcast today, and I apologize. Along with the not knowing if I would be here next weekend, when the weekend would come, I would spend the weekend with my friends. We would go get a bunch of adult juice and consume a lot of it. Go out to clubs and dance the night away. We would get home and DoorDash some food. We would literally spend, one night we spent $90 on Taco Bell once we got back from the bars. And I was escaping. I made it another weekend, and instead of celebrating, I was escaping because I had to face the fact that I made it another week without having made changes in my life. I lived my life every day like it was my last. And I mean eating Taco Bell because it tasted good, seeing a friend and having a margarita, and then going and having a full sugar soda from the gas station because I wanted it, and then eating a piece of cake at night because I wanted it, and because I genuinely didn't know if I would be here again. And I was living like that every single day. So when it came to the weekend, I overconsumed and escaped the reality that I did that for 7 days straight. I wouldn't remember the night. I wouldn't even be able to track how many calories in adult juices I drank. I wouldn't know how much Taco Bell I had at the end of the night, and if I had zero sugar Baja Blast, if I had regular Baja Blast, if I had that and a Sprite, if I had that and juice in the fridge. So then when the next night came, which is a Saturday, I would feel so ashamed of the way that I behaved for another day, that I would do the same exact thing to numb and escape my reality. Because when I was under the consumption of adult juices, nothing else mattered. And when you have adult juices in your body and you're in a club where you can't hear anybody but the music, and you're swaying and you're dancing, nothing else in the world matters. It is a euphoria. And that is the only time I felt normal. Oh my God. And I never got to hating myself. I got to hating the person who was making those choices, right? Because those choices were leading me in a path of an early grave. And because of those choices, I made choices to numb the feeling. But here's another part where it gets happy again, because I realized, and part of my, like I mentioned in last episode, the hard part's not the food, it's identifying the issues with the person making the choices and changing that person, right? So I had to clock myself. I had to clock myself and realize I am hurting myself. I am numbing something that should just be expressed. I should take that anger, that guilt, that frustration of not having used time to better myself and took it to the gym. I should have taken it by meal prepping. I should have done something different, and instead I chose to increase my calories and numb my brain so that I couldn't address the person making those choices. Until I decided to make changes. I spoke to the person inside of me. I worked on myself, and for a weekend, I decided I was the DD. I decided I didn't need a drink. I would still enjoy my night out with my girls, and I would just be in the club, dancing along, just sober. So I did that for one weekend. First night, everyone was like, "Oh, Desi, what's up? What's up?" Second night, everyone was like, "Oh, we can like take turns, whatever, right?" So the second weekend comes. I decide again, I'll be sober driver. So that's when one of my friends had asked me what was going on, and I had mentioned that I was escaping something with the use of adult juices, and I was tired of doing that to myself, and I want to face what I am doing. And they had asked me, sorry, both of my cats have come up to me now. So I've got one here, you can't see him, his name is Tigger, and I have another one here, his name is Luna. But he had asked me, "What are you escaping?" And I remember I was driving at this time, but I got kind of emotional, and I just told them flat out, I was escaping the fact that every day my choices are killing me. I was escaping the fact that I couldn't make healthy choices for myself. And that was terrifying to me. Not knowing when you are going to pass is the scariest feeling, and I had to numb it. And so I was honest. I was scared every single day, yet I wasn't making any changes. Also, I wasn't really having fun. A lot of people find enjoyment in consuming adult beverages because, like, you're with your girls, you're dancing, you're loose, you're groovy. I wasn't having fun because that was not what adult juices were serving me. I was not going into the night with the assumption that these adult juices were going to help me have a fun night. I was going in it with the intention of forgetting the night and forgetting the week. And that's what it did for me. And so when I was ready for a change, I couldn't let that be part of my life anymore. And so I had to share that with my friend when they had asked me what I was escaping, because I was getting to a point where I didn't even remember the night anymore. Like, I didn't even remember it, and all of a sudden the weekend was gone, which at the time was exactly what I wanted, but it was exactly what was hurting me. But being sober, I enjoy the night. I'm facing me as myself. I see my friends, and I can remember how fun the night was. And I think the biggest part too, because I talked about how these adult juices were numbing me, right? But when we got home, it was no longer the adult juices, it was the fact that we were door dashing. And so I also was getting numbed by just over consuming food right after all of the juice, right? It was a whole night of numbing. It was a whole night of overconsumption. And it really, really impacted my mental, my physical. Yeah, I think sober nights have really, really been one of the most helpful things that I've added on to my journey.
Healing from not knowing if there was a future to now realizing there is and picturing one is the weirdest thing ever. It's been something my whole life I couldn't picture a future, because my whole life I was making choices that weren't good for me, that made me that made my body know that it was headed towards an early grave. In high school,
I couldn't picture prom. I couldn't picture me in a prom dress.
it'd be 2 weeks to the event and I would have my dress
And I couldn't picture me in my dress.
It would be the day before a speech meet and I couldn't picture myself doing my speech. It would be 2 days before graduation and I couldn't picture myself at graduation. And it followed me through undergrad. It followed me through grad school. When I was in my sorority and we had bid day coming up, I couldn't picture myself at bid day, even though I was running bid day. I couldn't picture myself there. Graduation at my grad school, I didn't picture myself walking across the stage because I genuinely had a hard time realizing there would be a future me. And so the feeling of finding out that I can picture myself getting married one day, the fact that I can envision myself in a wedding dress is wild. And I think that's part of that healing, because I know that every day I'm making choices that are giving myself a future again. I feel life so fully now. So fully. My life is not centered around food. My life is centered around my cats. My life is centered around the outdoors. When I'm thinking of a trip, I'm thinking of when can I hit a hike. I went to Branson, Missouri in April, right? And the first thing I was searching was for hikes because I knew that there's trees and woods and beautiful nature out there. And that is not something I would have even thought of doing a year ago. You could not catch me looking up nearest hike. It's so interesting because I genuinely feel clean now. I genuinely feel clean on the inside and the out. I feel clean. I feel clear. It's a feeling that I didn't realize that when I was eating unhealthy, I didn't realize how gross, how heavy, how muggy I felt. But this feeling has been so interesting because I feel clean inside and outside of my body. I feel clear. I feel like a tube that has just been cleared all the way out. The food does not control me anymore. Instead, future Desi controls me. And sometimes people think that healing means I'm happy now, and I don't really think that that's true. I think healing is the moment when you finally realize why you have been doing the things that you have been doing. I think healing is realizing how the actions have impacted your past, making the steps, and then realizing why those steps are helping you. And I think that's where healing comes from. I want to read you a quote. I don't know who it's from. But I saw it and I just felt like this fits right into this next topic. When you've spent years coping instead of planning, your brain gets really good at solving today's discomfort. It isn't trying to build tomorrow, it just wants relief right now. For me, food became that relief. Healing wasn't just learning to eat differently, it was learning to believe that the future was worth taking care of. And I think that was so important because, like I mentioned, for so long, I was just focused on now, just focused on today, because future Desi didn't exist. I didn't know if she existed. I didn't know if there was a future Desi. So for so long, I focused on just now, living today as if there is no other day. What if I died tomorrow? I would have wanted that piece of strawberry cake with frosting. If y'all remember, If I didn't know there was a tomorrow, why would I not eat unhealthy today? Why would I not eat the exact food that I want to eat today? But instead, healing comes from realizing that there is a future Desi, and realizing that the only way to get a future Desi is by making changes now so that future Desi can exist. Back in my first video, I mentioned one of my favorite YouTubers is named Honey Bison. And I did mention one of her quotes then, but I'm going to mention it again here because I think it goes along with like the planning for a future self. She said, if you were put into the body of someone that you love and care about for one day, how would you treat that body? And I mentioned if I was put in my mom's body for a day, we would be going for a walk. We would be eating something healthy. We would be making sure she gets her veggies, her fruits, her protein. We would be making sure she's hitting all that and maybe get a good stretch in by the end of the day. Right? So thinking of that, I'm building a day for someone that I love, right? So it's important that we also do that for ourselves because we have to love ourselves. Ourselves are the only people we really got, right? Everyone else could flip and change and become someone completely different tomorrow, but ourselves is who we have for life. So if you remember thinking of somebody in that time that you would have gone into the body of and you were listing out what you would have done for that person, why not make that something you do for yourself today? Because really every day we're planning a future for someone that we love, and that someone that we love is ourselves. We love ourselves here. We love ourselves on our healing journey. We love ourselves before our healing journey, and we love ourselves after our healing journey. If your best friend, this is me, okay, I'm sorry. This is going along with me, okay? So if your best friend said they wanted pizza ranch, would you tell them they had to eat it today because next weekend isn't guaranteed? Likely no, right? Because any sane person would be like, bruh, it'll be there next weekend. So why are we treating ourselves like that? Why are we treating ourselves like Pizza Ranch is closed for the rest of time all because I didn't eat it today? We know it's going to be open next week. It doesn't have a closing soon sign. It's not shutting down. Treat yourself every day as someone you love. And that's where healing begins. Because I also want to mention this part quick on this kind of topic. I realized when I was eating unhealthily, if I wanted to add something else, it wasn't coming from a source of love. It was coming from a source of, I don't want to say hate because I didn't hate myself, but it wasn't coming from love. Maybe shame, maybe guilt. But when I gave myself the guacamole with my steak and my tostadas, that's love. That's love to myself. When I make my yogurt bowls in the morning, that's love. And that's love to myself. So along with deciding to plan a future for yourself, plan a future for someone you love, and that someone is yourself. Plan a future for the you that you love. When I think about future Desi, there is a lot of really good things that I see for myself that I honestly didn't see for myself a year ago. I've mentioned a lot of my debts recently, and it's just because it's another part of my healing journey, right? This isn't just a weight loss healing journey. This is a all of life healing journey. I, in the past, didn't think that I was ever going to have to worry about my debts because, again, I thought my health was going to take over me before that would ever be a concern. But future Desi has her debt paid off. Future Desi uses a credit card responsibly. Future Desi travels responsibly. Future Desi has a savings. Future Desi has an emergency fund. Future Desi even has a traveling fund too. A traveling emergency fund too, okay? Future Desi has funds and her debts are paid off. Future Desi lifts weights 3 times a week. Current Desi don't do that. Current Desi lifts weights like 1 time a week. Current Desi goes to a lot of cardio and Pilates and stretching classes. Current Desi meal preps, but Future Desi continues to meal prep. Future Desi goes on walks nearly daily to make sure that we hit 10,000 steps. Future Desi buys a house. Future Desi gets married. Future Desi has kids. Future Desi becomes fully licensed. Future Desi keeps making podcasts. Future Desi has 1 job full time and it works for her. Future Desi has her 2 cats and maybe a dog. I think an important thing to do is practice knowing who your future self is, because ultimately that's how you start creating goals. You have to know what you want in life, and then you create goals to reach that, and then you create steps below those goals. Right? It's like your dream, that's your future. You have goals, right? But each goal is still a huge chunk, so you have little steps to each goal. So it's important to picture what that future is so that you can then start making those extra little steps. So for the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving one day. I realized that I was looking at my future self, creating my future self, and making choices that are aligning with that. I am making choices every day that align to Future Desi so that Future Desi can exist and is here. So if you sit and think of who your future self is, who is she or he or they? What do they do? What's their social life like? What's their physical body type? How do they react to things emotionally? Who is most important to them? What skills have they gained? What relationship moves have they made? What are their favorite hobbies? These are all questions to ask yourself as you're building your future self, so that you can make the accurate goals and take the accurate steps to become that future self. And something I love doing for myself is looking back on old Desi and already seeing where I've come, right? And I think some examples that I wrote down are: old Desi would say, I have to eat it all today. Current Desi says, I can enjoy it Saturday. Old Desi would say, I'll just start over on Monday. But current Desi says, I'll go for a walk today. Old Desi would say, I already messed up. But current Desi says, 1 meal doesn't define the day. Old Desi would say, I deserve fast food. But current Desi says, I deserve to feel good tomorrow. And I think it's so important to do the reflections all the time, not just when you hit your peak self, right? I think it's important to do these reflections throughout your time.
So I love looking back at old Desi, and I love finding moments that I've noticed change in myself and really reflecting on that, because I did the work to become that. I did the work, right? I did that. So I love reflecting and seeing how I have changed so much. And it's so important for you to do the same, to go back and see where you were even 6 months ago and see the person you are, and not just physically. Because I think sometimes it takes a lot for our physical body to show, because a lot of it is mental. So going back and seeing your mentality change, going back and seeing how the way that you process things or the way that things affect you change. Doing all that reflection and then seeing where you're at now, that shows progress. The physical body does show progress too. Your habits are showing your progress. So if you get in a rut, you get stuck, look and reflect on your old self and look at how your new self is doing things. Look at how your new self is aligning with the goals that you have set for yourself. If you think about your goals every day and you act on them, I am sure that you have changed so much. And if you haven't, the fact that you're sitting there and recognizing that there hasn't been a change is reflection enough. Because it tells you exactly what you're wanting to see in yourself, and it's telling you exactly how to make those next steps. Because maybe that becomes your new goal, right? If your goal is, I want to lift weights 7 times a week, so your first step is, I want to lift 2 times a week, and you reflect and you haven't done that, maybe the 2 times a week becomes your goal. And maybe your step is you walk into the gym 2 times a week. And then if you reflect and you haven't even walked into the gym 2 times a week, maybe that becomes your goal. And your first action step is to drive to the gym and sit in the parking lot. And I know to some of us that feels like a failure. But when we think of planning a future self, that person that drove into the parking lot 1 time that week, in 6 months has now gone to the gym consistently for 1 time a week. 3 months later, they've been going to the gym consistently 2 times a week. 6 months later, they've gone to the gym consistently 5 times a week. But it never would have started had we not made the goal and the action step of showing up to the gym 1 time a week and sitting in a parking lot. It's important to reflect so that we can reset our goals into something more manageable for ourselves. So plan out that future self, set those goals, know that that future self exists, and they are worthy of creating and completing goals. That future self deserves your love. My future self deserves my love. And I have to show my future self love every single day. And the days I fall off does not mean that I didn't love my future self. It means that I let my current self live. But to show my future self love and respect, I bounce right back that next day. Because that's love. So as we end this podcast episode, I want to give you something to do. I think it'd be cutesy and fun, and you can like fold it up and decorate the outside and post a picture of it, and you can tag my @, which is @Baddie on all platforms. I do need to change my outro, so don't listen to that, but you can tag me on TikTok, you can tag me on Instagram of you doing this little, what are we gonna call it? Like, baddie builder? Okay.
We're gonna find a better name. Like, put a comment of a good name, okay? But what I'm gonna do, and I'll post on my socials, and what I want y'all to do, and if y'all want to post like the outside of it decorated or something, I want you to write a letter to yourself in 1 year from today and tell your future self something that you are proud of them for. Post a picture of you writing it, post a picture of you with it closed. You don't have to post what the letter says. That's not what I'm asking. But just post something of you also becoming a baddie on this journey with me. I will also post mine. Because becoming a baddie isn't about changing today. It's believing that future you is worth writing to. Thank you for joining me on another episode of Fatty to Baddie. I will see you next Monday. Bye.